Welcome to Lazy Bettor Guides Kentucky Derby continuing coverage. Today we're talking with venerable handicapping author and great guy Mark Cramer from Paris, France. Mark's got a lot of experience with international racing. We've got some international entries into the Derby this year. So we're going to talk to Mark about that and a lot of other things. Last year, we called this the slow train to the Kentucky Derby, but full disclosure, that was just a metaphor. Mark actually bicycles to the racetrack, and probably after this interview, he's going to hop on his bike and make a very informed bet. How you doing, Mark?
Well, Roger, you know, when you call me venerable, that sounds like you're saying I'm an old man. I'm only 77 years old, so I'm still a young guy. Before we actually talk about the Derby, since you mentioned the bike, give me 20 seconds and I'll explain a good word for bicycling to racetracks, because I've been doing that now. And it sharpens your mind for the decision making. If you're not going to the track, if you're betting from home, take a ride before you bet. This book here, Old Man on a Green Bike, is it's not about horse racing per se, but there is a chapter where I did a 1,000-kilometer charity bike ride for horse race retirement, Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, and we went to 13 different tracks in those 21 days on the bike, and I did quite well, and I attribute it not to my mind but to the sharpness of my mind because of the bicycle. But in any case, I'm right now I'm involved in another 1,000-kilometer ride, and I've gone to 3 tracks. And when I went to Longchamp a few days ago, I discovered there were 45 bikes parked outside. I counted them all. So I'm not the only one. So I'm not an outlier. Don't think of me as being an outlier. And if anybody ever needs help for biking to tracks in Southern California, Los Alamitos, Santa Anita Del Mar, Roger can give you my email address, and I will help you find the best route. Combining it with a train. Del Mar is great for having a bicycle there because they have bike paths that go around beautiful countryside. And maybe I'm cheating. I have this, see this leaf here? This is called molle. I think it's called pepper tree in English, but it comes from Bolivia. On the way back from, on the way to Longchamp, I passed a botanical garden, and lo and behold, I discovered my favorite tree in that botanical garden from Bolivia. It grows at high altitudes of 12,000 feet above sea level, and I crush the leaves, and for me, it gives me a high. Now, I'm not saying that it's doping. For me, it is, but it's legal. It's legal. It's called the molle, okay? And so that helps me get around. And so my mind, I think, is pretty sharp and ready to go for the Kentucky Derby.
Excellent. If I knew we were going to talk about plants, I would have brought a sample of my favorite leaf, but that doesn't necessarily sharpen the mind. So yeah, let's.
Yeah, this is the opposite of your favorite leaf.
So, yeah, okay. So with all that said, hey, but before we get into it, Old Man on a Green Bike, great book, a lot of interesting insights, as Mark usually does in his books. He kind of gives you a little paradigm shift, or a big paradigm shift on how to think about cities, societies, transportation, any number of other things. It's a great reflection of Mark's view on handicapping races, always turning things over and looking for an undiscovered factor. So with that, Old Man on a Green Bike, you can get it at Amazon, right, Mark?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's take all that and apply it to the 2022 Kentucky Derby. Let's start with a couple basics. There's always this big media circus around post positions. to me, there's almost nothing less important than that. Not because post positions aren't important, but because you don't know what's going to happen out of the gate in a 20 horse field. I used to like to look for post 14 and 15 because I had that gap between the two gates, the auxiliary gate, and figured it gave the horses some room. But more often than not, what would happen is because of that room, the 15 horse would come in and interfere with the 14 horse. And it turned out not to be much of an advantage at all in the long run. So do you pay any attention to post positions? It's something I ignore.
Well, I think that if I pay attention, it's if I know that in the field there's a bad actor, I don't want my horse to be in the post next to that bad actor.
Yeah.
You know, there are horses that get out and make trouble when they come out of the gate. So I haven't found any real bad actors in this field. The number one, Mo Donegal, for him, it might not be a good post position because he's got to come from behind already. And if he gets stuck in traffic because he's mired on the rail, that could even make his chances worse. So that would be the only horse I see where post position might have a negative effect.
Yeah, I see that too. I think the one that is a little better than it used to be because they're a little further off the rail with the new gate, but still probably the least favorable post in the Derby. So I know you want to talk about some of the international stars. So let's start with pace, because one of those horses shipping in from Dubai, it's almost certainly going to be the pace setter. That's Summer is Tomorrow.
Yeah, in fact, the time form has Summer of is Tomorrow as the leading pace setter ahead of Classic Causeway, and then it has three other horses in the third rank of the pace, which is Crown Pride, believe it or not, even though he looks like he's a tracker actually, Epicenter and Messier. So those are that's the pace according to time form. Now, my feeling about Summer is Tomorrow is that in his 7 furlong races before the UA Derby, he had beaten the horse by 4 lengths, and then just before the UAE Derby, he beat the same horse by 8 1/4 lengths. So it looked like he was an improving horse. And Summer is Tomorrow. I've done variants for the UAE Derby, and it was a slow track. I mean, Hot Rod Charlie that day raced a full 4 seconds slower than he had raced in the Breeders' Cup Classic and the Kentucky Derby. 4 seconds slower. Now, you tell me how many lengths that is. I'm not an expert on this, and I'm surprised that all these speed figure gurus out there are not doing a variant for this. But I did a variant using Hot Rod Charlie, using a couple of other horses who were in that field, and it looks like the track was maybe 15 to 20 lengths slower. So if that's the case, Summer is Tomorrow. That's not my top choice by far, but I automatically are going to have $2 to win on Summer is Tomorrow without nothing to do with my other selections, just in case.
Yeah, that's probably a wise move given how long the odds will be, and that you're going to get the leader probably at the 6 furlong mark at 30 to 1 or so. The other thing about Summer is Tomorrow in the UAE Derby that I noticed, I went back and I watched replays of several UAE Derbies, and just kind of eyeballing it, they've got the number of meters remaining on the right and the time on the left. It looked like Summer is Tomorrow ran one of the fastest paces of the UAE Derby in the past several years. So if he did that on a dead track, the way he held up in the stretch is really impressive.
Yeah, well, and in fact, you know, if you're in this for enjoyment, also, if you love the races, the Kentucky Derby, at least with summer as tomorrow, will be very exciting for you for at least the first 6 furlongs or a mile. And, the horse could walk away with it. It's possible. He's an improving horse.
He is. And the other thing I'll say about pace before we move on to other topics is that I wrote the Lazy Bettor's Guide to the Kentucky Derby in 2013. That's the year that Churchill Downs changed the eligibility requirements for the Kentucky Derby. And that actually strengthened my approach, because what they did in effect was they made the Kentucky Derby a restricted stakes race. They essentially said, we're not going to allow any sprinters. We're not going to allow any fillies, because there are no points for sprint preps. There are no points for filly preps. So they restricted the race. And what they did is they slowed the pace by doing that. And
amazing.
Yeah, this is going to be the first year where actually a sprinter makes it in, and looks like a really good sprinter has made it in.
Wow.
So I'm expecting it to be a lively pace. And I don't think that the pressers are going to sit back like they have done in recent years, because we've seen 2 essentially gate to wire winners in a row. So I think everyone's going to be a little more aggressive this year.
Yeah, and another thing about these the point system is that you have horses getting in on points who have been nowhere near the leaders in their prep races, but they pick up the pieces and finish third, like Happy Jack. And so there are a few horses in this race who should not be here.
Yeah, definitely. So it's going to be I think it's going to be an exciting Derby this year because of the pace, and so the only thing we need to do now is figure out who's going to win.
Yeah, it's a tough job.
So let's who do you want to talk about first here?
Well, what I did, I prepared a quick list that'll only take a few seconds with each horse of the negative of each horse in the field. It'd take us 20 seconds to deal with 20 horses probably. Number 1, Mo Donegal. He's off slow from the rail. The running style is a negative. He's got to get through a lot of horses. That's a negative. Number 2, Happy Jack. He inherited third in the Santa Anita Derby, a very weak field, only 6 horses. No chance. Epicenter, a horse I like. I've always liked him, but he has had soft trips up until now. That would be the only negative I can find on the Epicenter. Summer is tomorrow. We talked about him. Smile Happy seems to not have the killer instinct. I mean, he should have won that race, and he against Zandon, and he couldn't do it.
Yes, yeah.
Messier, this is a horse that I really want to bet against, and a lot of people are talking. They love this horse for some reason. Listen to this. Messier was in fields of 6 horses, 5 horses, 5 horses, 4 horses, and 6 horses in his last 5 races. He doesn't even know what it's like to be in a real horse race. He's like a maiden in this race, because it's the first real horse race he's ever been in. And he's not a battler. He never fought it out when he had to. So I don't, if Messier wins, what can I say? I'll eat my hat.
I think you're in for a better meal than that. Okay.
Now, okay, we talked about Crown Pride, and I talked about the variant, and we also have Crown Pride. The negative is the slow time in the UAE Derby, but there's a huge positive here, which is the jockey Christophe Lemaire. Nobody knows about him, or few people do. This guy has won. I've interviewed him once, and he is cool on the pressure of a big race day. This guy seemed like he was in a Zen state there. He'll handle this. And he's won in eight country stakes races, including in a 23-horse field. He won the Melbourne Cup. Mark Twain has written about the Melbourne Cup, by the way, good literature. So if he can do that, and he's been the leading jockey in Japan. Right now, he's currently with 21% winners in Japan. Here's a guy that can handle culture shock Believe me. So there'll be no culture shock for him on Crown Pride, and I think that's a positive. Number 8, Charge It. The horses he defeated in his maiden race are all still maidens today. So granted, he did well in the Florida Derby. He was running green. He charts to improve. He has a good trainer. But so far, he has to prove an awful lot, and he's very lightly raced. Tis the Bomb. Tis the Bomb. You know, when I heard about this horse, I thought the owner was Kim Jong-un, North Korea's president, because this is the threat. Tis the bomb that of North Korea. And I don't think this North Korea horse has any chance. He's awful on the dirt. Zandon, from the Bluegrass, he looked beautiful, but there were only 2 legitimate contenders in that race. Even the UAE Derby, who I can tell you about the contenders there later on, had better horses behind Crown Pride than Zandon had behind him. Pioneer of Medina, he's just not a good finisher. I don't think this horse is going to get there. Taiba or Taiba, however you pronounce it, similar to Messier, he had 2 races so far in his career, 6-horse and 7-horse fields with mainly field fillers. In Taiba's maiden race, it's a negative key race. None of those horses have come back to win. So, and 3 of the horses behind Taiba were only field fillers of a 6-horse field.
I was going to make that point earlier when you were talking about Messier. The Santa Anita Derby, I look at as only a 3-horse race. You had Forbidden Kingdom and Messier.
Absolutely.
Both kind of gave up the ghost, and Taiba came past them. Yeah.
There you go. Simplification has had a chance to outfinish White Abarrio and cannot do it. And his victory in the Fountain of Youth, that also was a weak field. In fact, this race is the encountering of big fish who are all coming from small ponds. And now they're in the ocean. So there's going to be surprises here because they haven't proven that they can beat great horses. Barber Road, I kind of like Barber Road a little, but he's going to be the same problem of coming from behind and getting in. He's trouble prone. He had trouble in the stretch of the Arkansas Derby, and he'll probably have trouble again. I think it's a very good horse. Maybe he'll finish ahead of Messier. Then we have White Abarrio. Now, I picked him publicly in the Florida Derby. I like the horse. I make him one of my contenders. I have him as my 5th choice, and it all depends on the trip. I mean, he's got to get a good trip here, and he's going to be prone. He won't be with the leaders. He does have tactical speed though, so he has a chance. Cyberknife. Now, if you look at the finishers and the horses in the Arkansas Derby, they were actually pretty good horses. Arkansas Derby, to me, comes up as one of the best prep races, although the buyer figure comes up slow. Go figure. But what I saw about Cyberknife in this race was that he looked like a more mature horse. He looked like he's really improving. And of all the major prep races, Cyberknife has the biggest odds. So I've made him a 2nd choice here. You want to say something about Cyberknife, Roger? Or
I'll throw in the comments on a few of these horses after, but I will say for now, I agree with you with the assessment of Cyberknife. I like him. Yeah.
Okay, Classic Causeway has the Tampa Bay early speed. I don't know, Tampa Bay early speed. That's more or less like Charlestown races early speed, you know?
And I can say that has cost me in Kentucky Derby pass. Those Tampa horses put up some pretty nice figures, and none of them, you have to go back to Street Sense, I think, to find a horse who did well coming out of there. Okay, continue.
Oh, we got 3 more. Tawny Port, was no match for these same horses in the Risen Star. I just don't think he's going to come from the Lexington and win this. Zozos, I actually like Zozos a little. He lost to Epicenter. It was his only loss of his career. And that was the first time at that distance. So I think that Zozos has a right to improve for Brad Cox. I give him somewhat of a chance. Ethereal Road, we can toss out.
Yeah.
Just doesn't have it.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I'm with you on most of that. So I'll start with the one disagreement that I have with you, and I've actually changed my mind on this horse. I had your view of him when I did a video assessment of Tiz the Bomb. I threw him out for all of the reasons that you mentioned. But reviewing his form, he just missed winning the Breeders' Cup race, Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. He closed very well there, coming off of 2 stakes wins. His only bad race is a Holy Bull, where he just didn't show up. And that's one of his few races on dirt, and that's why I tossed him out. I was like, oh, he just doesn't like dirt. But if you go back to his Ellis Park 1 mile maiden win, he ran off and won by 14 lengths. So
wow.
So you could, if you toss out that Holy Bull, then you've got a horse with a pretty stellar record here on 3 different surfaces. So in his most recent race, that Jeff Ruby Stakes, STEAKS, I don't know, that just cracks me up that they would actually do that. Turn their feature race into a pun. But that is the fastest running of that race on dirt since Balto Star ran out of line back in 1999. I think.
Good points, Roger. I think we should all recheck this horse. He doesn't have a North Korean jockey on him.
No, it looks like Brian Hernandez is sticking with the mount there.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But of all the closes, I don't like to play closes in the Derby and horses who come from that far off the pace. But of all of them, he's the one I would prefer. He's the one I think could have an impact. And I'll be using him in the second spot a lot. I might, depending on the odds, have a win bet of some sort on him too. So that's the one I see a little differently than what you described. The others, I'm on board. I can just kind of add a few points. Messier, after he lost at Los Alamitos, he lost to Slow Down Andy. Doug O'Neill's was Doug O'Neill's top Derby contender. He had the lead in that race in the stretch and couldn't hold off Slow Down Andy, who hadn't accomplished all that much at that point. So to me, I was thinking, well, this looks like Baffert has a miler here more than a Derby horse. And in the Santa Anita Derby, that just confirmed it. He, passed Forbidden Kingdom, who just completely gave up in that race. So he had the best shot down the stretch, and he couldn't hold off Taba. So again, I think shorter distances or maybe the turf is going to be better for Messier. I don't see him as being a real contender here. So I agree with you there. Cyberknife. Oh, Crown Pride. Let's go to Crown Pride. You make some great points about Crown Pride. You've changed my mind about him over the past week or so. The one thing that really I do not like to play horses who have weak closing furlongs or weak closing 3 furlongs. I like to see that speed maintained late in the race. Doesn't have to be superb or a win, but if it was a track that was tiring, then I'm almost there on him. I just have to.
Okay, Roger. Listen to this. It's not only Hot Rod Charlie. The pace was very fast, so it had to slow down. But and he was actually part of fast early pace, even though he was 4th and 5th. But he was close up there, and it was a big field. Now, if you look at Midnight Bourbon was in that field. Midnight Bourbon had run the Travers in 2 minutes and 2 seconds, and he ended up in the not in that field. Excuse me. I'm using the Dubai World Cup, same day, same track for the variant. I got to clarify this for everybody. Remember, I'm not a speed figure guy. I'm not a variant guy, and I'm waiting for those guys to come up with a variant for this race.
Yeah, but and just so for anyone who might be confused about what Mark's doing here, he's looking at the races that were run on that day in Dubai and comparing the horses who ran there to other races they were in Dubai and other 1.25 mile races they've been in.
Thank you, Roger. I needed you for that one because I wasn't clear. But so Midnight Bourbon was also in the same race as Hot Rod Charlie. That was the Dubai World Cup. And like I say, Hot Rod Charlie ran 4 full seconds slower than his normal time for the same distance. Midnight Bourbon in the Travers had done 2 minutes and 2 seconds, and the Dubai World Cup, he ended up with 2 minutes and 5 3/5 seconds. So he was a little bit less extreme, but that's 3 3/5 seconds slower for Midnight Bourbon. And we're talking about the same track, same day that Crown Pride had run. All right. And then you have the Dubai World Cup from 2022, the same track as Crown Pride, was 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Dubai World Cup 2021 was 2 minutes 1.6 seconds. So clearly it was slower. And I can prove that because the same horse, Chuya Wizard, was in both of those races and finished in the money both times. So clearly, this is an incredibly slow track. Yeah. So that makes Crown Pride to me. But on the other hand, if you compare Crown Pride and Epicenter for the same distance, because Epicenter also ran 1 mile and 3/16, Crown Pride is still going, even if you count, if my variant is correct, Crown Pride is still going to have to improve in order to beat Epicenter. My feeling, Crown Pride improves for four reasons. In his Dubai race, he got off slow, he was wide both turns, and he didn't change leads in the stretch, did not have a good jockey. Now he gets Christophe Lemaire. I think that's good for 3 or 4 length improvement at least. So I think Crown Pride could be there. Given the odds differential, I'm going to play Crown Pride, and I will play him across the board because 20-horse field, all of these horses, anything can happen. Chaos field, the place and show prices are going to come back quite good.
Yeah, and I think the place and show prices will be pumped up a little if horses like Zandon run out, which I think is a good possibility. So yeah, you've got me almost on board with Crown Pride. The other positive about a fast pace and a bit of a fade at the time-wise at the end is in my book, The Lazy Bettor's Guide to the Kentucky Derby, I have this category called the Superfast Horses, and only a few horses since 1992 fit that. And it's horses who ran exceptionally fast early, like way beyond what you would expect to be an acceptable pace for 1 mile and an 1/8 race. And those horses, Sea Hero, Silver Charm, and Justify are 3 of, I think, only 6 horses who've run that fast early. And all of them show a bit of a weak final figure, weaker than their usual. And all of them came out of that wicked pace to win the Kentucky Derby. So Crown Pride looks like and Summers Tomorrow actually both look like they have that going for them. So Summers Tomorrow, I have very much similar view as you. He's going to get out front. He's putting the pedal to the metal and trying to wire them. Is what I think will happen. In that respect, his race is a lot like that of Zozos in the Louisiana Derby, who also set a really fast pace there and gave way to a very good horse in the end. So we actually might be looking at the two best prep races, the UAE Derby and the Louisiana Derby, both in how the pace set up and how strong the winners were coming home off of that pace.
Yeah, and Roger, was that refresh my memory there? Was that Zozo's first stretch out or no?
You caught me flat-footed here, Mark. I think it was.
I think it was. I don't think he ran that distance before.
Oh, there's too many horses here.
Yeah. Well,
either way,
whatever.
Yeah, he's lightly raced.
He's lightly raced. He was undefeated going into that race. He won an allowance race, I think, before that. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. I look at Zozo similar to Summer is Tomorrow in the sense that both of these horses showed that they have a right to improve off their previous race. So.
Yep, with you there. And I think the White Abarrio I wanted to make a brief comment on, because we had a discussion with this on a couple of handicapping groups on Facebook, and you came up with White Abarrio in the Florida Derby. Really made a great case for him. Part of that case was that he might be undefeated if not for a troubled trip in the Kentucky Jockey Club. That's right. A 2-year-old. I rewatched the replay of that, and he got pinned to the rail, and he has to wait a very long time before he can get off the rail. And at that point, about the 16th pole, he has to go around 4 horses. So he moves from the rail to 5 wide and then makes his move. And it was way too late to catch Smile Happy. And it probably explains why Smile Happy won that race. Right. Hasn't been able to win much more after.
Yeah, I just watched the replay of that race, and I concur.
Yeah. So, so Zozos, like I said, those 2 races to me stack up as the strongest preps. And I will be, and Cyberknife was the other horse I wanted to comment.
Yeah, what do you say?
Yeah, so in my book, I have I have the gold standard and the silver standard. Horses who kind of hit my pace parameters at 1 1/16 make the silver standard. Gold standard is kind of horses who hit those parameters at 1 1/8 or longer. And Cyberknife in his allowance race at 1 1/16, he hit the silver standard in the race before his win in the Arkansas Derby. And the Arkansas Derby came up just under the gold standard. But it was definitely an impressive performance. He ran a very professional race there, tracked the pace. When they asked him to move, he moved, and he finished well. So he comes up strong for me also. Yeah, I agree with you there. He's an impressive horse.
So it doesn't bother you, Roger, about what does he get? Not only a 92 buyer for that race. Do you think they made a mistake on that one?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay. I just, every time somebody
I agree.
Yeah, I know you do. And when people kind of, I once wrote an article on my old website where I was comparing raw time. If you took the fastest raw time at 1 1/8 every year since, I think it was 1992, and I think I wrote this piece in 2014. If you took the fastest raw time at 9 furlongs and the top buyer at 9 furlongs, you came up with more winners using the raw time, more Kentucky Derby winners using the raw time than the buyer.
Interesting.
And then to put an exclamation point on all of this, one of the highest buyers ever recorded for a Derby prep race was by Materiality, who won the Florida Derby that year. And it was the slowest Florida Derby since 1954, I believe. He had the highest buyer, and it was much higher than American Pharaoh. So they had Materiality, who I believe never won another stakes race, rated higher than the eventual Triple Crown winner. So I'm not saying, I use the buyers in my second book, The Punter's Tale, and they're very effective for the handicapping method I was putting forward there. So I don't mean to diss them completely, but I do take them with a grain of salt, especially in the Kentucky Derby in preparations.
Right. All right. Well, that means that the White Abarrio race, including Charge It, maybe that's a better race, the Florida Derby, than you would think.
Yeah, although that race comes up weak on the way that
It does. Okay.
Pace and final times. And,
Okay.
and I really want to make a case for White Abarrio because this horse, I look at Sophie Joseph, the trainer, and this horse who's very modestly bred. I think his stud fee for the sire was $7,500, and if I remember correctly. And to me, they resemble Bob Baffert back in 1997 with Silver Charm, where the trainer is just getting up to the pinnacle of U.S. racing, and he has this overachieving, modestly bred gray horse who could put them over the top, and make them, one of the top trainers in the country. And so I'm really, I as a fan, I'm kind of rooting for both of them, but I just don't see the numbers being strong enough to get them.
Right. I hear you.
So, well, I think we covered it.
Yeah, I think we covered it. I mean, it's a tough race, right? But
it is. And so Mark, reminder that Mark has a lot of great handicapping books and a lot of books on other topics. Old Man on a Green Bike is available at Amazon.com. His novel, Please Hold All Tickets, is available there, and also at LazyBettorUSA.com. And
yeah, Roger, I have an offer to anybody for Please Hold All Tickets. Is if they get that book and it doesn't make them laugh at least 5 times, really a big laugh, then they get their money back. Okay.
All right, that's pretty good guarantee. It's pretty safe bet on your part too, I think. Yeah, and so my Kentucky Derby preview will be available at Lazy Better USA probably Friday. Working on it now. So thank you very much, Mark, for sharing all that great insight and all of your obviously very detailed handicapping work on this race.
Well, I read your book, Roger, so that some of it comes from there. Great discussion.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark, and thank all of you for watching. Good luck, everybody, in the Kentucky Derby.